Paddy the Baddy. So this is a massive talk, and it's really important that you understand that. Somebody had made a comment that Paddy, he goes from a most popular guy to it's done and it's over and nobody likes him. When a fight is over, us discussing it is over as well. Now, he gets 2 days. You get Sunday because that's a travel day, and then you get Monday's a big media day, and that is solely thank you to Ariel Helwani, who made Monday about recapping what it happened. But guys, when Tuesday comes around, forget it. It's a distant memory. Tuesday comes around, that's the day in our sport that signifies the media tour for what is coming up the following weekend. It's important that you understand how this works, though. You'd be stunned how many people are in this business and don't understand how this works. You get the build up to your fight, you get the fight plus 2 days. That's how it works. You are now done. Get ready to move on. If you come out and you tell a story, your story better not be from the past. It better be going forward. There's a very simple concept. It's been this way for 20 years, and many people don't understand it, but I digress. All right. But I do bring the point. You're talking about Paddy's stock is going down. Daniel Cormier came out. He had to talk about this. I think this was on the Ryan and DC show. But either way, DC said, no, this isn't going to hurt him. This fight isn't going to hurt him. It was a very simple statement like, no, guys, this isn't up for opinion. There's data that you look to, but whatever that data produces is your answer. You can rely on it. It's to a point of being scientific for our little unsophisticated industry. But if a fight is over on the back end of it, whoever was part of that card that gets talked about the most wins. It is one of the most important ingredients to Sugar Sean's algorithm. And I tell you guys that because you see him catch on, you just can't quite figure out how he did it. Is it because he dyed his hair pink? Like, you just can't quite figure out what he's doing. It's important that you do. And good for you for looking in that direction. But one of the most important ingredients to the algorithm is Sugar Sean. He does not let it go when it's over. He finds a way. Paddy is being talked about more than anybody. Paddy wins. That's how this works. If you're talking about stock and you're talking about rising, if you're talking about star power and drawability, that's how it works. Now, Matt Brown made a comment on this. When did Matt Brown get funny, by the way? This is like the 7th Matt Brown comment that I look at and it makes me chuckle. The best guest that I have ever had is Matt Brown. And I was not expecting it, and I did not want to do it. I thought this was going to be pulling teeth. This interview was years ago. It was the best guest that I've ever had. I was caught off guard with how personable and fun Matt Brown was to talk to. I'm just bringing that up because I've just always wanted to give him this credit. But Matt Brown is now talking about fights, and he's covering them, and he said that if Paddy were to move up, he would get mollywopped. When he talked about moving up, he doesn't mean leaving 155 and going to 170, which is a very realistic conversation. When you have all of these weight talks with Paddy, he hasn't missed it yet, but going to 170, it's one of these interesting conversations, but it's important that you understand that's not what Matt was talking about. Matt was talking about moving up in the rankings. If he was to take on a top 5, right? There's a little clash going on right now between Paddy and Justin Gaethje. And Justin Gaethje is feathering the nest, but he hasn't quite gone as far as to call him out. And Paddy the Baddy has avoided the topic like the plague. That's okay. Paddy avoids every single call there is. He avoids Mr. Hand Sanitizer. Paddy's consistent. It's okay. But I'm sharing with you when you do start to have those dialogues, right? What you're going to do with Paddy, Justin Gaethje is a really good idea. Where do you think Paddy stands? Some people think that he lost all 3 rounds over the weekend. I didn't know who won the fight. I will fully admit to you, if they gave it to Gordon 30-27, it would have been okay with me. But I do want you to meet me halfway and admit that if they gave it to Paddy 30-27, it would have been okay with you. Like, it was a hard fight. Can we do that? Because some people are really pushing back on me. My partner Ryan is going, chill, what are you talking about? Ryan brought me an interesting stat. They had 24 members of the MMA cage side doing their judging, their predicting of the fight. Of those 24 media members, 23 had Gordon. So I'm just sharing with you, I kind of saw something different. I thought you had a pretty competitive fight. I really did. And I will admit, if Gordon won, including every single round, I didn't think anyone was perfectly clear. That's just what I saw. When they raised Paddy's hand, I wasn't surprised in the least. Just what I saw. And I'm just asking if maybe some of you saw that the same, because pretty hot topic right now. When I bring to you Paddy the Baddy, okay, a lot of people think he lost 3 rounds over the weekend. He for sure had 1 completed round in his last fight, right? That was in England. It goes through the second round, but the completed round, he for sure lost. So if these people are right, Paddy has lost 4 rounds in a row. And that's an interesting and important detail. Some guys will get on a 3-fight losing streak, but you want to know how those fights ended. Did they lose a decision? Okay, great. Were they close? Were they split? No, it was 30-27 the whole time. Okay, so you're not telling me a guy lost 3 fights. You're telling me he has lost 9 rounds in a row. It's very relevant. We have some guys that are main eventers that have gone to a decision 3 times in a row and they lost them all. And you're going, hey, whoa, wait a minute. This isn't about 3 losses. You've lost 15 rounds straight. It's an important piece of data that people generally don't look to. But I'm sharing for you, if that is the situation and Paddy has lost, of 4 completed rounds, he lost all 4. You are in a very different decision about where you're going to move him up on a card. The other side of Paddy that gets missed, he comes at you very new. And I'm a Paddy believer. You guys know, but I want to make a point to you because I don't want you to miss this. He comes to you as very new. He's had 20 fights. He's not new. He's almost 30 years old. That's not young. I mean, you have these guys that come in and people talk about as I'm young. Are they thinking about themselves? No, there's no time. There's no time if you're almost 30 years old and you've had 20 fights. Oh, and by the way, people think that you've lost the last 4 rounds. Like, there's not time. We can draw some tickets and we can do some stuff, but as much as we like you, whatever your potential looks like, you're not yet a main eventer. And I don't know that I could put you in a main event. I mean, I can only treat you a certain way if you're not the marquee guy. And the other side of that coin is if you get to the writing on the wall, what do? Do you continue to do favorable or what you view to be favorable matchups? Do you do that? Or do you say, this whole thing is going to go up, right? I got a guy that's losing 4 rounds in a row. 2 different opponents that weren't main event guys, 4 rounds in a row, who's damn near 30, who struggles to make the weight class. I mean, you do start to look at it from a little bit different perspective, and you say, yes, put him in there with Justin Gaethje. We're going to test it. We're going to test it now. If he gets over on Gaethje, great. Everything is wonderful. He becomes a big star. But if he doesn't, this train is going to get off the tracks eventually. I can't have a big guy who commands attention, not in the marquee spot. It's the equation is a little bit more complicated than you guys think. Like the Justin Gaethje fight is very, very possible. And the people that are stopping it saying, no way, no how, they wouldn't do it. You're doing that from the perspective of understanding that doesn't appear to be a favorable fight for Paddy the Baddy, but you're always doing it from the perspective, how many favorable fights can you get, right? I mean, you can get one across the plate. You can even get a couple. They don't all go that way. So at some point, you're much better off to test this theory, which may blow up, in an extreme way. If the guy's going to get beat, right? I'll ask you a question. What do you think would harm Paddy more? Getting beat by Gordon or getting beat by Justin Gaethje? I mean, you're now starting to see the difference. You're now starting to see that when you get armed with the fact that this isn't quite what we thought it was, when you get armed with that fact and you understand, this is an old man. 30 years old. These guys are not young. I hear these guys calling themselves young, but it's very irrelevant, right? He's a new guy, but this isn't a 21-year-old guy. This isn't Rosa. This isn't a 23-year-old guy. This isn't Chimaev when he busted on the scene at 24 years old. This is a guy pushing 30. I'm a believer, very much so. I'm just sharing with you. Before you think Gaethje is too big of a step and the organization wouldn't do that, it would be a very wise thing to do. And these get tested, and these are risky. They go against you more times than they go for you. But there's a lot of sense in taking that big step. Look, one of the things that's been talked about more than anything over the weekend was the judging, and specifically of that fight. So you had McCarthy was doing that fight, who, by the way, is an excellent judge. You had Douglas Crosby doing that fight, who, by the way, is an excellent judge. But it was Douglas's second fight in 2 days. He had worked at the Mohegan Sun, got on a plane and came out to Vegas. He operates 2 matches, and that for some reason was a discussion. I mean, I heard Errol Hawani even talk about that, and Errol gets to spend time within the NBA, and he says there's an actual NBA rule. The referees must report to the venue 24 hours ahead of time. I didn't know that, but they must. They want to take jet lag out. Okay, fair enough. I've never heard that rule. I thought a guy that could do double duty would get credit. I think that's a good thing. I think that's things in life that you admire, but somehow this has come out. And Mike Mazzulli, who, by the way, is President Mazzulli, he is the head of the Associated Boxing Commission. So you really must understand that. There's no rule that he can look away from. They're his rules. Somebody had given the bird out of the Mohegan Sun about 4 or 5 months ago. I think it was the Italian gangster, but somebody gave the bird. Mazzulli fined him. Ended up costing the guy $5,000. He fined him. You can't do that. Well, people think that's extreme. It's not extreme. He's the president of the rules. He can't just turn away and go, oh, that rule doesn't matter. And then what, go tell all of the other commissioners who look to him for guidance, you need to enforce. It doesn't work that way. So Mazzulli has come out and he said that he's going to get these judges together. And now I moved you here. I moved you from the Paddy fight, but that's because it pertained to Douglas Crosby. And I moved you back to Stotts Sabatello, Italian gangster. Mazzulli said, I'm going to get them together. Well, of course he's going to get them together. I mean, he always gets them together. He always has them speak and discuss. He always, and particularly when there's dissension that extends all the way to controversy, we need to talk. Does this one guy need to explain to us what his interpretation was and how he got there, or the 2 other guys, right? Just because it was majority, just because 2 other guys said that it was Stotts, that does not by default make them right. Perhaps they do have some explaining. Everybody needs to listen. I'm just saying that this is a very normal thing, and this is what you get from leaders. Mazzulli doesn't have knee-jerk reactions, ever. He's a leader. He inspires, not he fires. He brings you in. He has conversations. He makes them better. I'm just sharing for you. Everything here is very normal. Let's get in a spotlight, and we're having a little bit of fun with it. I noticed the media is having like this, a little bit of fun. And a lot of it at McCarthy and Crosby's expense. But the process that you're going just because you've been brought on it, the great directors in our sport will always look at fights when they're done. And they'll always want to hear. You two had differing opinions on the same match. I want to know why. Seems like a pretty reasonable question to me.